Hello and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Thursday, August 7th, 2025, the 219th day of the year. And if you have a flight on United Airlines today or you're waiting for someone who's coming in on United,
we had a nationwide outage. We're coming back out of it.
A technical glitch forced United to ground all of its flights nationwide last night, creating delays and cancellations that extended into today. The glitch was fixed, but the airline now playing catch-up. Today is National Lighthouse Day, not only celebrating the beauty of majestic lighthouses around the world, but honoring their rich history as well. And August 7th is National Purple Heart Day, to honor and remember the brave men and women who have been wounded or killed in action while serving in the U.S. military. The Purple Heart, initially known as the Badge of Military Merit, was established by General George Washington on this day in 1782. It's a big, big deal for members of the military and their families. And on this National Purple Heart Day, 5 U.S. soldiers are recovering after being shot by one of their own at Fort Stewart Army Base in South Georgia yesterday.
We have identified the alleged shooter as Sergeant Cornelius Radford, an automated logistics sergeant assigned to 2nd Brigade Combat Team. I would also like to thank the brave soldiers who immediately intervened and subdued the shooter. These soldiers, without a doubt, prevented further casualties.
That's Brigadier General John Lubis. Police say the shooter had a disagreement with one of the victims on Tuesday and then followed that co-worker to a maintenance area yesterday, Wednesday, where he shot him and then shot 4 others with his own personal handgun, not a military-issued weapon. This is Newsmax host and former Marine Greg Kelly.
Fort Stewart, not too far from Savannah, Georgia. It is the home of the 2nd Brigade Combat Team, and that is the outfit that I embedded with during the invasion. That's Eric Wesley. He was the executive officer of the 2nd Brigade Combat Team, and we went all the way to Baghdad and saw so many things. Their home base, 2nd Brigade Combat Team, is still Fort Stewart, Georgia. I have to say, though, right after it happened, the first thing I thought was terrorism, may or may not be, and it may or may not be motivated by radical Islam. We have seen that a lot, especially on military bases. Do you remember the Fort Hood shooting a while back? But an Army officer, an actual doctor, an Army psychiatrist, opened fire, killed 13 people. More recently, there was a mass shooting, actually the worst mass shooting in Washington, D.C. history. That individual right there, Alexis Aaron, had a history of mental health issues, something of a mystery. It was explored. Did this have anything to do with radical Islam? I think there's a bit of a question mark over that one. Chattanooga, Tennessee. This a clear-cut example of terrorism motivated by radical Islam. Pensacola, Florida, another base that I have experience with. I went through flight school there, spent a year on that base, and a flight student actually was the one who opened fire. He was on loan to the Air Force, killed 3 people. Corpus Christi. All of these, we believe, with the possible exception of Aaron Alexis, motivated by radical Islam. And I think we have to be able to say it, okay? That's a lot of victims. And you don't hear all about the victims all that much, and you don't hear, especially when it is radical Islam, it's downplayed for whatever reason, isn't it, right? Nobody likes to talk about it. What do they like to talk about? Oh, if only this was white supremacy. Oh, if only this were skinheads. Then everybody would be happy, especially the previous regime.
We won't ignore what our intelligence agencies have determined to be the most lethal terrorist threat to the homeland today. White supremacy is terrorism.
The most prominent threat is the threat of white supremacists.
In the FBI's view, the top domestic violent extremist threat comes from racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, specifically those who advocated for the superiority of the white race.
This is not true. They are all lying. And they had, I believe, the intelligence agencies cooked that up. To the extent that any intelligence report reflected that, it was made up. It's not true. Radical Islam remains a major threat, and we see signs of it getting, it's dangerous, it remains potent, and it's also very potent, the idea that you can't talk about it because you might seem Islamophobic or racist. Screw that. That's what the Brits did, right? They were all worried about appearances. You heard about the rape, the Arab rape scandal over there? It was happening, everybody knew it, but they were afraid. Even law enforcement was afraid to talk about it because, again, if you're accused of racism or Islamophobia, that's it.
And that's former Marine fighter pilot Greg Kelly, host of Greg Kelly Reports, who also reported on the other big news of the day.
America keeps hitting the jackpot. Another big company with another huge investment in the USA. Apple, the iPhone people, the iPad people, they make a lot of stuff. $100 billion. Hey, it's not too much to ask, right? $100 billion? Hey, all right. President Trump made this happen with force of personality and also some good business sense and I think a little bit of morality. All of our stuff getting made overseas, it had to switch sooner or later, right? I love that it's coming back. Manufacturing coming back to the United States, and it is a big, big deal.
We're going to be putting a very large tariff on chips and semiconductors. But the good news for companies like Apple is if you're building in the United States or have committed to build, without question committed to build in the United States, there will be no charge. In other words, we're not going to be charging. So a lot of countries, a lot of companies are leaving various other places and they're coming to the United States.
All right, great news. And I love it about Apple because Apple's an interesting company. It's Silicon Valley. It's kind of high design, but I love it. And you know who turned me on to Apple stuff? Rush Limbaugh. He would talk about it all the time on his show, and he, you know, the things he was learning, and sometimes he had a tech problem, and he was all over Apple, and now I am too. They make just incredible devices. Anyway, thank you, Rush, and I thank you to President Trump and Tim Cook for making this happen, and a lot of other money coming America's way. Isn't that nice for a change, right? We were always investing overseas. Now it's coming home. It's beautiful.
Apple announced a $100 billion additional investment into the U.S. They had previously pledged to invest $500 billion a few months back when SoftBank made that big announcement as well. These are billions that we're talking about, right? $600 billion over the next 4 years. You know, if you have 999 million, the next million is a billion, right? And we're talking about $500 billion. Well, now $600 billion over the next 4 years to avoid Trump's tariffs, which went into effect on imports from dozens of countries at midnight last night, or 12:01 this morning, starting at 10% all the way to over 40%. In an effort to get chip makers to follow Apple's lead, Trump also said there would be a 100% tariff on imported chips, with a lot of exceptions, though, but not for companies building them in the United States. Chip stocks could certainly see a reaction to that news on the markets today, but so far the markets are positive, and Apple stock is trading even higher as well. Those 50% tariffs that Trump had announced on India the other day for buying oil from Russia don't go into effect for 19 more days. And you remember it was a 21-day window, hoping that India will come to the table to negotiate. If you've been paying attention, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff is in Russia for a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. This morning, the Kremlin announcing that Putin will meet with President Trump to discuss the war in Ukraine, but no date or place for that meeting was given. Vladimir Putin has still not committed, though, to meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky. That coming from the Kremlin this morning. This is NATO Ambassador Matt Whitaker on Newsline with Bianca De La Garza.
Ambassador, great to see you. There is a clock. It is ticking. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, you know him. It's not the first time he's met with Putin. Do you think that the calculus has changed at all, not just with the deadline, but with the fact there could be sanctions as well, ones that may actually hurt his ability to fund this war?
It's good to be with you today. And what I would say is that, first of all, obviously President Trump is a peacemaker. He's averaging about one peace deal a month. His most recent one was between Thailand and Cambodia. So, I mean, he is certainly wants the killing to end. And, I've said it many times, there is no battlefield resolution of this war in Ukraine. It's going to be a diplomatic solution. Special Envoy Witkoff obviously is the president's trusted diplomat in these very important negotiations. But at the same time, nobody's going to be happy with the deal, but both sides need to agree to it. And we just hope that President Trump is creating the environment to have both sides agree that the war should end. The killing has to stop. Thousands of people are dying every single week, including civilians. And, there is just, it's sad, but ultimately both sides just need to agree to a ceasefire.
We'll see what the call between Zelensky and President Trump produces. But as of yesterday, they seemed like they were also in communication ahead of this meeting between Witkoff and Putin. The Kremlin says it's constructive and useful. Okay, so that is not necessarily a bad thing. But, point to the fact that there's an executive order here, Ambassador, about the oil and the sanctions to India, that President Trump thought it strong enough to up it to 50%. That's news that he broke yesterday, and he did follow through, as he does when he says he's going to do something, but really outlining it here in black and white. This is an interesting tactic as far as, using the tariffs, which, of course, Wall Street has tried to put in as, inflationary, but really as national security. And no other president has really been able to sort of bridge this. It's so critical, though, because it puts India, puts China, our adversaries, on check to force them perhaps to bankrupt the war, too, which is something that, ultimately may actually be the only thing that gets to Putin.
Right. And the only thing that Russia is selling right now is illegal oil. And it's sold primarily to China, India, and Brazil. And obviously, President Trump following through on his threats, saying that if you're buying Russian oil, you're going to face secondary sanctions and tariffs. This is a good step to, again, creating the environment where Vladimir Putin can no longer continue his war effort as he has been. Donald Trump wants peace. And, he wants a world where everyone can live in peace and prosper. And that's what he's trying to create here. But hopefully we can get this war to an end.
U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Matt Whitaker on Newsmax. So again, the Kremlin says that Putin, who has spoken with President Trump on the phone several times, will now meet with Trump soon, but still not agreeing to meet with Zelensky. And switching gears a bit, there was a bomb threat at the Chicago hotel where some of the Democrats who fled Texas are now staying. Our resident Texan, Chris Salcedo, who has been covering the Texas redistricting story for us on a daily basis, has some new information from Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton.
The reason why the Democrats still hold unearned power in this country is because they've gerrymandered their states to insulate themselves from accountability from the voters who now want to make a change, no longer willing to support the Democrats' policies that will likely lead to the fall of the United States if we remain under socialist Democrat rule. In Texas and some other states, President Trump would like congressional representation to reflect the will of the people rather than the will of the leftist Democrat Party. To that end, he has sought to redistrict those states, not to insulate himself from accountability, but to accurately reflect the will of those states who have rejected the anti-American Democrat Party. In Texas, the Democrats have shut down the government, trying to stop the will of the people from being expressed. In the past, most Texas Republicans have dished out no punishment to Democrats when they gave a middle finger to government's whole reason for being, to work the will of the people. Right now, the Speaker of the Texas House, even though he has authorized Texas Democrats to be arrested, he still refuses to strip those same Democrats of power they didn't earn at the ballot box. Despite the Texas House knowing exactly where these Democrats are, no arrests have been made yet. Speaker Dustin Burrows hasn't even revoked these Democrats' parking spaces. But other Republicans seem committed to ensuring that Democrats are brought to justice and pay a steep political and, yes, legal price for leaving their post and shutting down Texas government. Governor Abbott is one such Republican. We talked to him yesterday. So, too, is my next guest. He is a conservative, has been the bane of fake Republicans' existence, fake Republicans who want to sacrifice their own voters to please leftists. He joins me now, conservative Texas Attorney General and U.S. Senate candidate Ken Paxton. Sir, it's good to see you. There's a report that Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke's super PAC is actively fundraising to pay the fines for these Democrats that they're earning. Texas Governor Greg Abbott says this is likely a felony for those who are raising the money and those accepting that money. Is the governor, a former AG himself, as you know, on solid legal ground in your professional opinion?
Yes. So we are, I'm announcing on your show that we are going to start that investigation today of Robert O'Rourke's power by the people, or whatever it calls it, his PAC. And we're going to find out if they've done anything inappropriate, whether it's a bribe or whether some type of other campaign finance laws were broken.
Right. And again, do you think that the governor, if felonies have been committed, is it possible that Democrats raising money in this fashion could be guilty of a crime?
Absolutely. We're going to find out. I mean, I don't have the details. Obviously, we are just announcing literally right now. We're getting it out today. Our questions for the organization will be sent out today. And depending on what those answers are, we'll find out whether we have something to investigate.
All right. Well, you've been working pretty hard on this. You know, and Governor Abbott is targeting Democrat ringleader and communist China sympathizer Gene Wu. You're targeting every quorum-busting leftist. Describe to me what this lawsuit that you're filing in the Supreme Court will do. Explain the whole process. Walk us through this.
So it's something we came up with a few years ago. It's never been done. It's called quo warranto, and it allows us to go in and potentially remove office holders who are not doing their jobs, who are absent, who are not following through on their responsibility to the voters. So we are looking at which ones we can pursue. I can tell you this, it's going to be more than one. It won't be all 51, but remember, we only need to get, our goal here is to get a quorum. We don't need to get every lawmaker back, but once we get enough back for a quorum, I can tell you, then you'll see the other ones follow. So that it's designed to create momentum, and we're going to file that. If these legislators do not show up, as the Speaker has requested on Friday, we will file our action in the Texas Supreme Court on Friday.
That's Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton on the Chris Salcedo Show. So tomorrow, Friday, is the day the Texas Democrats must return. I'm going on record as saying I don't think they'll return. And then the Texas House will go to the state Supreme Court. And now there are several blue states, including Massachusetts, threatening redistricting of their congressional map in response to what's happening in Texas. Attorney General Paxton also breaking the news on the Chris Salcedo Show that Beto O'Rourke's Political Action Committee is now under investigation. And the news gets even better for Republicans. Adam Schiff is also now under investigation. More from Carl Higbie.
Ain't it funny how one of the things that Democrats accuse Trump of, they're actually doing? Actually, more than one thing. First, it was Letitia James, ironically, the person trying to charge Trump with mortgage fraud, lying about, allegedly at this point, of course, how many units her property was, and even allegedly lied on another property that she claimed was her primary residence in Virginia while she was the New York Attorney General. Right. Okay. Well, now, apparently, my favorite dude to hate has done the same thing.
Can you believe this guy? He's got the smallest neck I've ever seen. And the biggest head. We call him watermelon head. I'd say, how could that big fat face stand on a neck that looked like this finger?
Adam Schiff is now officially under criminal investigation for mortgage fraud. This is great. It couldn't have happened to a better person. From the looks of it, they might actually have him dead to rights, too. This is all going down in the U.S. Attorney's Office out of Maryland because, as we heard a month ago, the Federal Housing Finance Agency was concerned about him possibly falsifying banking records. See, being a senator, and actually at the time of the mortgage, he was actually multiple refinances, he was a congressman from California, which kind of a requirement of that is to, I don't know, live in California. But starting in 2003, Shifty Schiff signed an affidavit certifying that his primary residence was, in fact, a home in Maryland, that red dot right there on the right. I mean, why would he do that? Oh, right. Well, because you get a lower interest rate and tax write-offs for a home being your primary residence because, you know, he's from the party in those states that hates millionaires, so they like to tax second homes at a higher rate. Anyway, they buy this house for like $610,000 in 2003. And then they had refinance filings in 2009, 2011, 2012, and 2013. I've never heard of anybody refinancing that many times. But, you know, each time Shifty Schiff affirmed on official documents that this was, in fact, the Maryland residence was, in fact, his full-time home. In fact, he didn't list it as his secondary residence until 2020. What happened to... Oh, yes, suspiciously, around the same time, Democrats started to concoct all these bogus investigations on Trump, one of which was for the same thing that Adam Schiff, apparently, was actually doing. So he probably thought he should maybe get above board at this point. Look, this flew under the radar because most people probably thought, okay, he's a congressman in D.C., spends a lot of time there. Right, but he's a California congressman at this time, and you have to live in the state that you represent. But also, and this is where it gets good, and this is where they might have him, in the same time, him and his wife claimed that their Burbank, California condo was also simultaneously, it means at the same time, their primary residence, which, by the way, would have given them an additional $7,000 reduction off the 1% property tax every single year. So the guy was gaming the system to get more favorable loans. Exactly what he and his party accused Trump of doing. That, by the way, they were never able to adequately prove in court. And even the banks were like, we're totally happy with this. FHFA Director William Pulte said that Schiff, quote, appears to have falsified records in order to receive favorable loan terms and also appears to have been aware, that goes to intent of the crime, of the financial benefits of a primary residence mortgage when compared to a secondary residence mortgage.
That's Carl Higbie, host of Frontline, 5 p.m. Eastern. I have a suggestion, and this sort of goes hand in hand with the insider trading thing for Congress. Why don't they just check where every member of Congress has declared their primary address? Make it part of the vetting process. They do it when you're running initially for Congress, so why don't they just make it a regular thing, like once a year, every 2 years, whatever, they check where you're actually residing or where you've claimed to actually be residing. And let's wrap it up with this. Yes, I know this could have been the lead as well, but yesterday the Trump administration said the transcript or possibly even audio of Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche's conversations with convicted sex offender Ghislaine Maxwell could be released. You remember he spoke with her over the course of 2 days, 9 hours. Now they're saying that could be released by the end of the week. Well, today is Thursday. This is Newsmax Washington correspondent Alana Austin.
Good morning. Of course, members of the public, the American people, have questions about the individuals that were in Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's social circles. Reportedly, upwards of 100 individuals were asked to Maxwell in recent meetings with top Department of Justice officials, and it remains unclear exactly what she told them. Now, the question is whether Attorney General Pam Bondi will be making any of those conversations open to the public. Now, we know those meetings took place with Attorney General, the Deputy AG, Todd Blanche, meeting with Maxwell's legal team over 2 days. It spanned 9 hours. Those conversations, Maxwell reportedly told officials she never saw President Donald Trump do anything concerning. Now, some reports indicate the release to the public of the transcripts or the audio recordings could come as soon as this week. Maxwell, the convicted accomplice of sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, the late sex offender, that is, she was moved to another prison in Bryan, Texas, late last week. This follows those meetings that took place in Tallahassee, Florida. Now, her attorneys are appealing her conviction, taking it all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, the president is receiving questions about the decision to relocate Maxwell to a more relaxed facility.
Two questions for you. One, were you aware of and did you personally approve the prison transfer for Ghislaine Maxwell that your Justice Department?
I didn't know about it at all. No, I read about it just like you did.
And do you believe that she is?
It's not a very uncommon thing.
Do you believe that she's credible to be listening to? Your Deputy Attorney General sat down with her recently.
Well, let me tell you, he's a very talented man. His name is Todd Blanche. He's a very legitimate person, very high. I just a very highly thought of person, respected by everybody. And I didn't talk to him about it, but I will tell you that whatever he asked would be totally appropriate.
Another pending legal matter, Obama appointed federal judge Robin Rosenberg of West Palm Beach, opposing the Trump administration's efforts to unseal the Epstein grand jury files. Now, Maxwell's defense team is also against it out of concern it did not allow for proper cross-examination or vetting of all allegations. Now, the Trump administration's response to that is to say most of the information in the grand jury files years after the fact has now been made open to the public and been reported in the media.
Newsmax national correspondent Alana Austin in D.C. outside of the DOJ. Today, President Trump is signing executive orders in the Oval Office, and then late this afternoon, he'll be speaking in the East Room, which is a media event, so he will also be addressing a lot of questions. And as always, we will have it live on Newsmax. That gets underway at 4 p.m. Eastern. On Wall Street, as I mentioned earlier, stocks opened not only in the green, but sharply higher. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up more than 250 points. This after the NASDAQ closed at another all-time new record high yesterday. Eli Lilly posting better than expected earnings this morning thanks to its weight loss drugs. There's several other marquee earnings that'll be out through the course of the day. And Claire's stores, you know, they're usually in the mall, and I don't know how many malls still exist, but Claire's Stores has filed for bankruptcy protection for a second time. Bitcoin and most other major cryptocurrencies also popping this morning. Bitcoin back above 116,000 and XRP back above $3 at $3.07. Be sure to keep up with all of today's news and breaking developments throughout the day on Newsmax, N2, and at Newsmax.com. Also, make sure you have the Newsmax app on your phone so you can keep up to date anywhere, anytime. The news starts each and every morning with Wake Up America. That's followed by National Report, Newsline at noon, American Agenda, Chris Salcedo, Carl Higbie, Rob Schmidt tonight, Finnerty, Greg Kelly, and much, much more. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Newsmax Daily. Continue to share it with other people. Enjoy the rest of your day. Pay attention and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.